Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Senate Transportation. Would you join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Senator Prentice, would you do us the honor?
Yes.
I
Pledge
pledge.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are going to start off by opening the hearing on House Bill 105, and we'll have the prime sponsor come forward. It's very nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Senator Ricciardi. For the record, my name is Rosemary Rung, and I represent Hillsborough 12, which is the town of Merrimack. And I'm delighted to bring forth HB 105 to you. It's a bill that passed House Transportation and passed the full House on consent. And what this bill does is it provides a non-tax revenue source to fund the Cyanobacteria Loan and Mitigation Fund, which passed in 2023. The funding for that bill came out of a variety of different funding sources, ARPA, the surplus, but it's been pretty much expended. I think it's down to 200,000. But the needs, the projects that this fund is intended to support help mitigate and reduce cyanobacteria blooms. And I'm sure all of you are aware of the prevalence of cyanobacteria blooms that we've experienced in New Hampshire, particularly the last few years. And they pose, a risk to health of people and animals, particularly children and small animals. They impact our economic vitality because, especially last year, where we had many areas of Lake Winnipesaukee that were under bloom warnings, it prevents people from recreating and coming to our lakes region and enjoying all of the resources that we have. So and I know we're in and as you know, you'll really know soon, the big financial burdens, challenges we're facing as a state this year, developing the biennial budget. So this is a great way, a non-tax way, where we'd be adding a conservation plate that would feature a loon, and it would be similar to how we operate the moose plate currently. The initial setup costs, I believe, are estimated to be about $24,000, but that would be paid for by the initial revenue coming in. $30 of the registration fee would go directly into the Cyanobacteria Fund, which is administered to the Department of Environmental Services. The way that DES, and I know Mr. Deers is here from DES, but administering the funds from this program would go toward projects that have been identified through watershed management plans, which are very database, scientifically driven plans that identify for lakes where they may have sources of nutrients that feed cyanobacteria. And they could be storm runoff, where culverts may need to be reconstructed or built. It may involve water diversion projects. And many of these projects are done already by watershed management organizations in the state or lake associations. But the cost can be insurmountable for some of these groups, especially if it's a small water body. Also, sometimes these watershed management plans identify the issue of being caused by in-lake loading, which means that nutrients, specifically phosphorus, that might reside in the sediment of the lake, under certain conditions, that phosphorus enters the water column and serves as a nutrient source for cyanobacteria. And the only way to reduce the risk of blooms from in-lake loading is to do what's called an in-lake treatment, and it's a distribution of alum that's put on the lake. It's a very involved process, but that can run upwards of $500,000. And I do know that Partridge Lake is scheduled to have one in May, but the increased occurrence of cyanobacteria blooms really comes down, it's going to result in increased costs. And the cost can be very, very large. And this license plate will really go a long way to help reducing the costs that the state would have to incur to support mitigation projects. I know I've gone on, so I'm going to stop there. But I do want to bring up one point. There has been some suggestions that not all the revenue from this plate go to the cyanobacteria fund, that some of it gets diverted to fish and game. But I would really urge this committee not to entertain those type of suggestions, because mainly because the costs of cyanobacteria mitigation projects are so high. We really need every penny we can get. But this fund doesn't go to operations. It's not going to go into a general administration of a department. This is really strictly going for mitigation projects. So with that, I would love to address any questions that you may have.
Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'll just make a comment. I think that that would also offer a lot of awareness for people who aren't familiar.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, last summer, with the amount of blooms we had, particularly affecting Lake Winnipesaukee, it has gotten a lot of people's attention, and people are expecting the state to do something about it. And this is one way we can demonstrate to the public that we do acknowledge this issue and we are doing something about it.
Thank you. Oh, yes, Senator.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for taking my question. And I believe in the program. I believe in all we can do to mitigate cyanobacteria. We've worked on those sort of items together. But my question is, did DMV testify when you proposed this? My question specifically is that the cost it takes to manufacture the plates, and I'm sure that this is a wonderful, wonderful cause. I know it is, but it can run hundreds and hundreds of plates before the state gets to a break-even point. So my question is, did anyone ever consider doing something as a decal as in place of a full plate? Maybe as the department is here, maybe someone could answer that later. I don't see anybody.
Well, they did testify in front of House Transportation. I don't know if they took a formal position, but they were very optimistic that the cost of this would be nominal and could easily be covered by the fees. It's not something that would be protracted. And it's essentially because they have software upgrades, and it's very easy for them to implement the software and the mechanical engineering of actually producing the plate. As far as a decal, just with what we see with decal plates is they almost always go to an outside organization, Girl Scouts of the Green and White Mountains, nonprofit groups, where this is staying in state. So that's why I felt the conservation plate was more in line with what we've done with the moose plate, even though the upfront costs would be more than a decal plate. I believe that it would be more embraced more by the public. And I know the director of New Hampshire Lakes is here, and she can talk about a survey that they did. But we're seeing as this is raising money that's going to stay within a state department, I think justifies the fact that it is going to be a bona fide license plate.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Before we go to the next person to testify, I'd like to ask Director Marasco if you could come forward and answer Senator McConkey's question. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. John Marasco, Director of the DMV. Senator, that's a great question. I did review the fiscal note that Registration Administrator Liz Michaud would have put together. $25,000 is what's listed to actually provide for the system upgrade for the new plate. certainly if the money is allocated, we can make that system upgrade and make it happen. I know we worked with Senator Prentice on a plate for a decal for the Injury Prevention Center at Dartmouth last session, which was great to get that over the finish line. My experience over the last 3 years has been for initiatives such as this, the decal has been the preferred method approved by the legislature, able to be enacted by the nonprofit or the entity who actually distributes the decal to the end user. And it kind of takes the DMV out of that part of the process as opposed to creating a new plate type. So as far as the plate itself, at the prison, we do have, as you can see on the website, numerous different plate types available. That being said, we can create a new one, but it's one of those situations where the technology there is not ideal to continue creating new plate types, and I think that's why the decal originated several years ago. So the decal would probably be the easiest way to move this forward.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate that. The cost, if we move forward with the plate, and it's a worthy cause, there's no disputing that. That cost of the $24,000 that it would take to get that up and running, does any of the money for the special plate go back to the state to produce those, or it just becomes a cost to the state of $24,000, sir?
So with the decal goes directly from, again, the entity to the end user. My understanding is the DMV doesn't recoup any money from the actual decal process because we don't produce the decals. When it comes to the plate, that would be different, and we'd have to make sure that the cost for the manufacturing of the plate meets or exceeds production cost. I can tell you that we testified here before Division II Finance last week, and we talked about the production cost for a set of plates currently being charged $8 to the end user. We're barely breaking even on that, and in some cases taking a loss with a specialty plate like this, and the extra artwork that goes into it. You could be taking a loss potentially a little bit per set, but I'd have to look into that further.
Madam Chair, may I have one more? Would you have the chance to respond back to myself or the committee on that and what the cost of that decal program is?
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you so
Yes.
much, sir.
You're welcome.
So you're saying that there's no cost figured into this bill for the actual plate?
Well, what I see in the fiscal note is the 25,000 that would include the upgrade to the system itself. So I just want to confirm that that includes the prison work that would go into the creation of the plate. So I could provide you with that as well, Senator.
We would need that because if this were to go through and go to finance and then not pass because the fiscal note really doesn't match what the actual cost is, could be problematic. So we should get that straightened out before we would proceed.
Okay, I'll confirm that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Anyone else for the commissioner or director? All right. Now the chair will call Amy from NHDES. Hi, Amy. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me. So thank you, Madam Chair and Senators. My name is Amy Smagula, and I am a Chief Aquatic Biologist and the Director of the Limnology Center at the Department of Environmental Services, where we work on lake, pond, and river water quality issues. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context for the cyanobacteria program at DES. Representative Rung did a really good job of providing an overview of the cyanobacteria issue in the state, but I just want to give you an idea of how we handle it within the agency. So cyanobacteria, you may be more familiar with blue-green algae, which is what they used to be called. They are responsible for harmful algal blooms in aquatic systems. And that water body can be listed as impaired for a lot of different uses, like swimming and other recreational activities, or for supporting aquatic life. So they are pretty harmful. In fact, in 2022, Governor Chris Sununu signed House Bill 1066, which directed the Department of Environmental Services to develop a plan to prevent the increase of cyanobacteria blooms and eventually to control them. So with that bill signed into law, the Department of Environmental Services led a committee that evaluated cyanobacteria blooms in the state, and that resulted in a New Hampshire cyanobacteria plan, and it's a statewide strategy for combating cyanobacteria in the state. And the plan did identify, among other elements, the need for more funding for mitigation of harmful algal blooms in the state. In the past 2 years, DES has seen over 120 cyanobacteria issues that resulted in warnings being issued for water bodies across the state. And that was due to high cell counts and sustained blooms. Some of our blooms that were occurring last summer lasted months. So they would start midsummer and extend into the fall, which is unprecedented in New Hampshire. So we are starting to see this issue magnifying. Cyanotoxins, which is what these blooms produce or could produce, are harmful to aquatic life and humans, and especially, as Representative Rung said, small children and animals as well. And even this winter, we are monitoring a project for a spring aluminum treatment, and we went up to Partridge Lake in Littleton. Even under 18 inches of ice, we observed a full-blown bloom in the middle of the winter. So this is not just a seasonal issue. This issue could happen year-round. So it is quite significant. So some limited funding has been awarded in the past. In 2023, the legislature established the Cyanobacteria Mitigation and Grant Fund program. And under that, DES was awarded $1 million. And of that, only $200,000 remain, as we've funded some projects out of that. And if you are interested, I'm happy to provide any details on those projects. But cyanobacteria mitigation projects can range anywhere from a couple $100,000 to $500,000 or more, depending on how big they are. And there are dozens of water bodies that are on our list right now that have sustained blooms. So if we were to attempt to manage those water bodies with the $200,000 that remain, that wouldn't go very far. So additional revenues would help mitigate these blooms and restore the balance to the state's water bodies, thereby protecting aquatic life and human health and the economic and recreational values of our state's water bodies, which is why people come to New Hampshire. The Department of Environmental Services has an established cyanobacteria program already, and we have a good track record of experience with comprehensive water body management and watershed management. So any funding that is allocated from this license plate or any other funding would be put to good use to rehabilitate those water bodies in the state. So with that, I thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The chair will now call Mike from NHFG. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the Senator Committee. Thank you very much. My name is Mike Marchand. I am the supervisor of the Non-Game and Endangered Wildlife Program at New Hampshire Fish and Game. I'm here to testify in opposition to House Bill 105. First, like all others likely in this room, I love New Hampshire lakes, and I share the concerns and recognize the concerns expressed regarding cyanobacteria and its impacts. And we, as the agency, recognize the link between clean water, healthy habitats, and healthy wildlife. And we fully support efforts to reduce pollutants into our aquatic water bodies. However, we're here to testify today just so you have all the information of unintended consequences associated with this bill. And so we do, as a department, have significant concerns about impacts to the existing revenue generated from the Moose Plate funds. The Moose Plate was established to fund 5 different state agencies and the programs that they run. They're an integral and critical source of funds for those programs. And they've been a hugely successful program within those departments. You may hear from other departments after. The Department of Fish and Game has a long history with the Moose Plate funds, or as they're affectionately called. So they were established when a school group, a 4th grade group from Holderness, actually proposed this the Moose Plate funds. And it took several years of support and collaboration before those were eventually funded for the Moose Plate program, recognizing that they were a critical source of funds for multiple state agencies in order to run programs. The numbers that were mentioned in terms of one treatment were equivalent to the amount of money we receive for an entire department in a given year. So really critical to running all of our programs, both from our staffing to do all the work as well as all the on-the-ground work that we do. In our department, we receive about 20% of the overall Moose Plate revenue, and that makes up about 40% of our budget in the non-game program. And so these funds are dedicated towards the conservation, research, monitoring of all of our non-game wildlife, which makes up about 80-85% of the species in our state, so the vast majority. And when you add in invertebrates, which we are also responsible for, it's literally thousands of species that we are responsible for managing with these funds. The next source of the funds, so it's the largest source of funds that we have in our program right now. Following that is federal funds and private donations that we need to raise to help run our program. The Moose Plates are also critical at us receiving those federal funds because all of those federal funds require state matching funds. So without these funds, we would not be able to bring in more of those federal funds into the state to do this work. This work funds our biologists to do monitoring, research, active management, recovery work for all of our threatened and endangered species, but also the keeping common species common, both for aquatic systems and for terrestrial systems. So very, very important. We feel strongly that the proposed loon plate will directly compete with the Moose Plate. I've shared a publication from Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife that's submitted to the Maine legislature that shows the decline in their conservation plate over time. So they reached a high in 1997. Their plate is actually a loon plate, ironically. And they've had a steady decline as new specialty plates have been introduced. So there's a direct inverse relationship between new specialty plates and revenue for their department. Now they're at a point where they're in need of new funds and they can't even complete their basic functions that they've been doing for many, many years. So I wanted to present some of that data from another state, and hopefully we don't follow that same path. Furthermore, I think that the use of the loon creates that direct conflict. My experience has been with the Moose Plate when people are purchasing a plate that it has a wildlife logo, they think they're contributing to wildlife conservation. And with a loon, you're talking about two of the most iconic species in the state of New Hampshire, the moose and the loon. And we feel it's a direct choice for those folks that are making between those two species. So we feel like it'd be really a direct loss of revenue over time, and the main data supports that. I think it's so in closing, I mean, I do appreciate the difficulty in generating funds. I appreciate the goal here, and we support that. We're going through the budget process ourselves. As you all know, Fish and Game has a challenge of maintaining a budget. These funds are critical for us to maintain, not to increase, but just to maintain our existing functions moving forward. So I really encourage the committee to consider alternative funding sources for this purpose. And I guess I would also second the consideration of a decal plate. My understanding is that plate was established for the specific purposes of new additional plates similar to this. And there's 15 other organizations that currently have that option. So I encourage the committee to explore that as an option. And I'll close with that. I'm happy to answer any questions either now or in the future. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Senator McConkey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Mike, for appearing. And excuse my informality. I didn't hear your last name, sir. So the Moose Plate funds 5 agencies I see listed here. Can you get back to me and to the chairman and provide what that revenue stream was for the last couple of years for those departments that received those funds? Would that be possible?
Yes, I can. I have an estimate of ours. I don't have it for the other agencies right now, but I could provide that following the meeting.
Thank you. And then I think that would handle that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. A senior moment just came to me. So how many years has the Moose Plate been in existence? I think you may have told us that in this.
I think it was 1998 that it went. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Okay. And
But when it was passed, I don't know when it was actually in the first year, but
Madam
right around that
Chairman,
time.
one last. Have since 1998 have the partners you've dealt with, have those rotated out? Have some agencies stopped receiving funds and other agencies are then put into this group of 5, or did you start out with 3 and you've climbed to 5? I'd like to know that.
I believe all the agents, I believe the programs that were identified in the original language is still the, and again, others can correct me if I'm wrong on that. There was some shift in other agencies which they can speak to because of agencies shifting programs. I believe it was Cultural Resources used to be in a different department, so then those funds moved into when they were combined with Natural and Cultural Resources.
So, the best of your knowledge, there's no ranking system, and no one has looked at possibly rotating some other agency in.
I'm not aware of that, but
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. And I do have to ask that we try to limit to 2 minutes because we have 9 hearings today to get through.
Thank
And there's a lot of speakers, so try to, if you have a paper, maybe not read it, but just give a synopsis of your point of view. Thank you. The chair will now call Bruce Brownie, Webster Lake Association. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Bruce Brown. I am the president of the Webster Lake Association in Franklin, New Hampshire, about 40 minutes north of here. We have 140 households who are members of our organization, and that is in no way all the people who live on the lake, but it is a majority of them. An interesting fact, I think, is that most of these homes are multi-generational. These people have been living here for 50, 60, 70 years, and they inherit them from their families. They started out as little camps, and now they're becoming larger homes. So there are a number of us who live there full time. I'm one of them, and there are many who have this as a second home. The fact of the matter is, we own our little piece of the shoreline, but New Hampshire owns the lake. And if blooms happen, that's New Hampshire's issue. Right now, the lake associations are doing a tremendous amount of voluntary work. We work with the DES, and we do monthly sampling of water from our lake, and we bring it down here, and it gets tested in the labs, very ably run by the folks that you see here. But this is a big problem. Because suddenly, if there is a bloom, and if you scheduled your monthly vacation or your 1 week of vacation at Webster Lake in the family home, and there's a bloom, now guess what? The kids can't go swimming, you can't go kayaking, you can't go sailing, you can't go fishing. The very reason that you think New Hampshire is so wonderful has just gone down the tubes. So I am absolutely enthusiastic in recommending that you pursue this loon plate. I will tell you, I would not buy something that was a decal. I'll give you $50 for a loon plate if it looks like a loon plate and it stays on my car. But it doesn't make sense to me to put a little tag on it and charge people $30 for that. That to me is not responsible. But the loon, and I'm cognizant of the fact that there may be other issues about does this interfere with moose? It might, but the loon is what our lake is famous for. And we have loons that live there every year, and we go to sleep listening to the loons. I've lived here 8 years. I've never seen a moose. I hope to. And I think the moose plates are probably a great idea too. I think there's room for all of it. And Webster Lake certainly would appreciate your help in helping us have some funding down the line to take care of cyanobacteria. We're doing our part, and we hope that the committee will do its. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much. Chair will now call Dick McIntyre, if I'm saying that right.
I'm Dick McIntyre. I represent Lake Joe Sylvia in Hopkinton, New Hampshire. Thank you. I think this is such a terrific idea. I'm not normally an impulsive person, but when I saw this initiative and followed the energy behind it and heard there was a hearing, I felt like I had to put my 2 cents in. As a resident New Hampshire lake property owner for over 50 years, I share the same pride and protective instincts towards New Hampshire lakes that I've seen in so many others, like my friend here. The dedication of fellow lake property owners is consistent and impressive. Like others, the Small Lake Association on our lake has addressed many challenges, maintaining a mile-long Class 6 dirt road, and for the purpose of making it drivable, and also primarily for the purpose of preventing runoff into the waters in the lakes. Any cost that's involved with that comes from the dues from our association, and any labor that calls for that is frequently done by the residents themselves. For 33 years, our Lake Association has participated in the state-sponsored volunteer lake assessment program, VLAP, collecting water samples every year to be tested and assessed at state labs, keeping an eye on our water quality. Every year, 33 years, we have continued to do that, 5 months out of the year. We're involved with weed watching. We've had seminars on watching for milfoil and other invasive species. We have precautionary signage at the lake waterfront. Like most other lake property owners, we are all in for protecting the lakes we love. But the challenges of cyanobacteria outbreaks is the place where we can't fight the battle alone. The income from these license plates, as you know, can add to a coordinated effort to combat the menacing damage from cyanobacteria to our waters, as well as unwanted health issues from the contaminated water. As I said, I believe the Love the Lakes license plates are going to be very popular, and I think they're going to generate strong sales.
Thank you.
I've got 2 more sentences.
Okay,
Okay. The sales of these plates will generate badly needed funds, and it's a clever way to promote one of New Hampshire's greatest assets, our lakes, and create further interest in lake-based recreational opportunities as a kind of rolling advertisement. Thank you very much.
thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will now call Andrea from New Hampshire Lakes.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Andrea Lamoureux, President and Policy Advocate of New Hampshire Lakes. I will keep this brief and just answer some of the questions and comments that have come up. So this lake plate, I hear some concern in the room that it may take away from other really critical, vital programs. I hope this plate is wildly successful. In fact, I hope it's so successful that it brings in more money than it needs, and that we actually raise up all of the programs. I would love to see a day when this loon plate is making so much money that we can revisit legislation in the future and consider reallocating funds to other worthy programs. The fact of the matter is, I do think this plate's going to be wildly successful. Every summer for the past several summers, I have gone out to Lake Association meetings during the summer, and I've floated this idea by people. I asked people, hey, how many people here have a conservation plate? And sadly, a very small percentage of people raise their hands. Then I say, how many here would buy a lake conservation plate? And a lot of people raise their hands. I think this plate is going to bring a lot more people into the fold of getting conservation plates, bringing in more funds overall for conservation in New Hampshire, which is a great thing. And I think, we can in the future revisit the reallocation. relative to the decal, we have definitely looked into the decal, and I understand that, organizations have gone that way. Looking at the decal, it would need to go to a nonprofit organization to fund. I'm not saying that New Hampshire Lakes would be the organization that's chosen to do that, but I would say if my nonprofit organization were charged with implementing a lake decal, we would have to hire another person to do that. We would take money out of the program from the get-go. Also, those decals are meant to last 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So the purchase of the decal is a upfront sort of one-time cost. And those types of plates are destined to not make as much revenue as a conservation plate would make. So with that, thank you for considering our perspective. We truly do hope this will raise all boats for conservation in New Hampshire, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your
Thank
testimony.
you. Thank you.
The chair will now call Representative John McDonald. Good afternoon, Representative.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I'll keep it brief. My name is John McDonald, and I represent the fine people of Wolfboro and Tuftonboro, which is Cal District 6. We have several lakes in that area, and the main concern we have is we need to find some help to address the cyanobacteria and the issues. We've had a couple of outbreaks on our town beach, all different parts of the lake, and this funding will help tremendously if we can get the funding through this plates. I'm a person of choice. If I can choose for a loon plate or a moose plate, it's my decision. I don't think it should be judged on one agency losing money to another one. I can see most of the people I know that have lakefronts, they have 2 cars. They'll probably put a moose plate on one and a loon plate on the other. But again, I just want to speak in support of this bill. I think it's a positive step in moving forward in addressing the cyanobacteria throughout the 700 or 800 lakes and ponds we have in the state. And thank you.
Thank you for testifying. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
The chair will now call Sabrina from NHB.
Good afternoon. My name is Sabrina Stanwood. I'm the administrator of the Natural Heritage Bureau within the New Hampshire Division of Forests and Lands within the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. My testimony here today, we take no position on this bill. I'm just here to provide facts. The Natural Heritage Bureau is a predominantly self-funded bureau, and we receive a portion of the Consplate funds that come to DNCR. And they directly fund important programs, including unique natural areas, for example, the Ossipee Lake Natural Area, for us to manage globally rare natural native plants and natural communities there. They also provide, the Consplate funds also provide a really important match for our federal grants that we receive in these programs. The last thing that I would like to say is we absolutely support the efforts to reduce the eutrophication of lakes and support addressing cyanobacteria blooms. I think maybe identifying existing programs like the decal program might be wiser. And as a side note, I was recently looking for a house, and I went to look at a house in Northwood, near Northwood Lake, and there were many people at the open house, and a lot of them were from out of state. So I'm not sure how to address lake users that live out of state and how to get those funds to really, license plate funds to support New Hampshire lakes. If I may, would like to answer Senator McConkey's question about the revenue for Consplate last year. The entire program brought in $2.5 million for the Consplate for FY24. And I'm all done if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Administrator Sandwood. It's nice to be sitting on this side. You're normally talking to me at a meeting. So thank you. Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for having that number.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The chair will call Jan. Can't make out the last.
Baldy? Hanley?
Is there Jan? No? Okay.
Maybe up.
Oh, maybe,
Ian Hanley.
yes,
Ian
it's,
Hanley.
okay. It says, please print, but boy, Okay, come forward, please.
I thought it was two.
Okay.
Thank you. Apologies for the handwriting if that was.
I have bad
unclear.
eyes too, so it's all good.
My name is Ian Hanley. I'm the Executive Director of the New Hampshire State Conservation Committee. The New Hampshire State Conservation Committee is a multi-agency group that includes representation from Fish and Game, Department of Ag, Environmental Services, Natural and Cultural Resources, the Ag Experiment Station, the Cooperative Extension, the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions, and our state's 10 county conservation districts. The SEC is probably most well-known publicly for administering the Conservation License Plate Grant Program, in which we receive, like the other agencies, 20% of Moose Plate revenue annually for. And so as part of my testimony, I just want to bring up what that grant program does. Almost all the money that we bring in as revenue goes out the door to grants around the state. So these are grants for water quality, wildlife, soil health, best management practices, conservation planning, and land conservation efforts. And within those practice areas, there are plenty of agencies and organizations that are able to apply for that funding. And so this includes our conservation districts, K-12 schools, environmental groups. Over the past 10 fiscal years, we have given over $2.9 million in grants to environmental nonprofits around the state to address all kinds of environmental concerns and projects. We also have done about $500,000 specifically just within the water quality area. And we also have multiple projects throughout all of the practice areas that are impacting water quality throughout the state. So with that, I'll take any questions that people have.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on House Bill 105? Please come forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Marasco, Director of the DMV. I just wanted to add to my testimony when I first came in and sat down. Again, on the decal plate, we have no position on the bill. Whatever the law is and what you ask us to do, we'll make happen. On the decal plate, as I said, all expenses are borne by the entity that's creating the actual decal and issuing the decal. Our role at the DMV is to assist where we can and to approve the actual what the decal is going to look like, the actual image. On the plate production, to Senator McConkey's point or question, so 3M, there's sheeting that goes on top of the aluminum. That's what you see, on the exterior of the plate. So what I asked for was, and it's not in the fiscal note, what is the cost to create the new sheeting that will go on top of the aluminum that would, if this bill were to pass, would represent this plate. So that's being looked into, but it sounds to me like it's not a large cost. So it's something that, is manageable, but I can get you an exact figure. I'm waiting for that. We did do that recently with municipal fire departments. They were looking for a plate that would mirror what police departments have throughout the state. And so they had to come up with a design for that, the color, the scheme that went along with it. And we did work with 3M to have that produced. So it can be done. The only other area that I just want to touch on was, again, with the equipment that we have in the prison, what ends up happening is, depending on the types of plates that are being produced on that particular day, they've got to plan accordingly. So they do vanity plates here, they do 7-digit plates here, they do other specialty plates there. And so what you run into, and I think this is why the decal was always preferred over the new plate type, is that if you've got, and I hope in this case for what everybody has testified to, that whether it's a decal or a plate, that it's a home run. But if they come in, small groups or a one here or two there, there can sometimes be a delay in getting those out because the prison has to plan their process and do groups of plates at a time. And that's why I think the decal is probably more efficient. So when the request comes in, you can get the decal out the door. Whereas when the request comes in, we've got to set it up with the prison to make sure that they're going to print those smaller numbers of plate types on a particular date and time. So I just wanted to make sure I gave you all that additional information. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Seeing none, thank you. And I'll ask again, is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on House Bill 105? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on House Bill 105, and we will go right into opening the hearing on House Bill 140. I don't know.
I think that Senator, I think Jonah will.
Representative Wheeler, if you'd like to come forward.
Introduce.
Are you introducing it? How come they don't put who introduces it on there? How am I supposed to?
It's Representative Newell's bill, but I didn't see. But I do see you as a co-sponsor. That's made me think maybe you.
Okay.
All right.
All right, well, thank you for stepping up.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Senate Transportation Committee. For the record, my name is Jonah O'Ryan Wheeler, and I represent the towns of Peterborough and Sharon. HB 140, I'm a co-sponsor of HB 140. Representative Newell is not here right now, so I'm happy to take her place. Some large shoes to fill, and I hope I do a good job for her. HB 140 sets forth a new program in our state called the Blue Envelope Program, which essentially allows people who have a hard time communicating to put something on their window which communicates that they have a hard time communicating with the officer who may have stopped them. This legislation had an amendment to it which included something more than autism. It was originally supposed to be a blue envelope program about autism, but I think they expanded that to include other lack of communication sort of, I think it includes other people who have lack of communication skills. I think it's an important bill because sometimes people with autism, when an officer comes to their window in the best meaning way, that's an intimidation factor for that person. And as someone who has a hard time speaking interpersonally, that person might have a hard time speaking with a figure of authority. And so making sure that it's clear to that figure of authority that this person isn't trying to subvert your questions. They have a genuinely hard time answering those questions in an appropriate way is something that I think that the legislature should move forward on. And this legislation passed the House unanimously on the consent calendar and the committee unanimously after an amendment. And I'm happy to take any questions the committee may have about this program.
Any questions? Senator Prentice?
Thank you. And thank you, Representative Wheeler, for taking my question. So I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, that in order to basically there's an empowering or a rulemaking provision in here so that the Commissioner of the Department of Safety can write rules related to, say, the implementation of this, including the handling of confidential medical information, which means there will be a way to verify if somebody has this envelope. There will be a way to verify, say, if they're calling in at a motor vehicle stop, that they are on this list.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We don't want anyone to just use the program frivolously or to fake that they're on this program. So absolutely.
Yeah, the rulemaking provision is important. Good. Thank you.
Would
Thank you,
this
Senator.
include someone who, say, had a stroke and then has aphasia so they can't speak?
That's a good question. I'm not sure the legislation includes that. I think what we had, I don't think it does.
What about someone who doesn't speak English?
No, it's a different program.
Okay.
So we had similar conversations to those questions in the House. And as far as I understand, and again, Jody would be, Representative Newell would be much more appropriate as she was the head of these conversations in the House. But what I know of tangentially about this legislation is that they wanted to keep it specifically to autism,
Okay.
and then it ended up moving towards allowing other people with disabilities to be included in this, but it's specifically for people with disabilities.
All right, thank you.
May I? It's a national program, so Blue Envelope is recognized across the country specifically for autism spectrum
Okay,
disorder. Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Is there
members of the
anyone
Senate
else
Committee.
from the public that would like to speak on House Bill 140? Director Marasco, you're popular today.
Every day.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, John Marasco, Director of the DMV, thank you for the opportunity to speak on HB 140. I did testify on this bill in the House, and although, well, actually, we would support the bill. We would support the bill because it's something that, if asked to do, we would be able to implement. I've spoken with Director John Skippa at the Police Standards and Training Academy. Director Skippa was great and said that if the bill were to pass, that we would certainly work with work together to make sure that the proper training went out and that, there was an opportunity for everybody in law enforcement to understand how the program would work. We do offer the autism icon on the back of the license, so it aligns with what we currently do for purposes of licensing at the DMV. And it would just, it would have to be something that we probably would bear the printing cost for the envelope and whatever information goes on the outside of the envelope. And we believe that that's something that within our budget, we would be able to manage. I don't know how many we would have to print, but I know we can manage that. So, so if the program were to pass, we would implement it and be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to take any
Don't
questions.
see any questions? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Again, anyone else from the public like to testify on House Bill 140? All right, seeing none, we will close the hearing on House Bill 140 and go right into opening the hearing on House Bill 259. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Senate Transportation Committee. My name is Representative Matthew Potaro. I represent Merrimack County District 11 in Allenstown, and I am the prime sponsor of House Bill 259. I'm happy to report that this bill passed the New Hampshire House of Representatives on a unanimous voice vote, ought to pass. Along the way, we've gotten the glowing endorsement from New Hampshire ABLE. New Hampshire ABLE, of course, is a nonprofit which advocates for disability justice. They called it an enabling bill. And what my bill does is that it removes the limit to the number of handicap plates that a person with a walking disability can get. In essence, if a person with a disability owns multiple vehicles, they can get a handicap plate for each and every vehicle. Now, I have personal reasons that I introduced this bill. It was many years in the making. And it was because my father has a walking disability, and he ran into issues with the laws and the rules concerning the handicap plates. And when I introduced it, I discovered that there is also a separate issue with placards in the state. And I want to convey to the committee that I am beginning my second non-concurrent term, and I'm so looking forward to crossover, and I'm looking forward to continuing the work on a separate topic concerning the placards. I have a lot of data with me, and there's a separate issue, but I only bring that up because the simplicity of this bill is just to simply remove the limit to the number of handicap plates that a handicapped individual can get. With that, I am happy to take your questions.
Senator Ward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So how much is a handicap plate to begin with?
In this case, I do know that there is a specific price for getting the one handicap plate allotment that a handicap individual can get. There is a specific rate. This would be the same rate for each plate,
So
for
you could
each
end up-
vehicle.
You could end up with 2 or 3 or maybe 4 plates?
It could, philosophically speaking, if, let's say if you're, I don't know, a farmer with 20 different pickup trucks on your land, and each truck has a different purpose, and you're a successful farmer and you register all your vehicles, nonetheless, the farmer has a walking disability, he or she would be able to get a handicap plate for every one of the vehicles that that person owns.
Thank you.
So you have to prove the registration is in your name if you're getting 4 plates.
It would be identical to the process, Madam Chair, of how a handicapped individual would get their one plate now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you for taking my question. And I'm sure your dad's very proud of you for doing this, so that's really awesome. So a walking disability, would you have to prove that with your doctor? Is that, is there a definition of a walking disability right now? Or how does that?
Thank you, Senator Fenton, for the question. My answer is that I am so very, very blessed that I'm in good physical shape. I don't have a walking disability. I don't have a handicap. So I'm not intimately familiar with the step-by-step process beginning to end. Concerning this bill, the United Spinal Association New Hampshire chapter and New Hampshire ABLE came out for it. They are the experts on it. Legally speaking, examining it, my understanding is a person with a doctor's note can go to the DMV and get a handicap plate and 1 placard, or they could get 2 placards. This bill would make it, I suppose, they can get 2 placards or an infinite number of plates, 1 to match each vehicle in which they own. The process of getting multiple ones and paying a separate fee for one, I believe, would be identical to the current process for those individuals, sir.
Any other questions? Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Representative, for taking my question. So the purpose, as I understand this, would be that if you had 5 vehicles and instead of having 1 plate, all 5 vehicles would have a handicap, a disability plate. And that way the person who has a walking disability could use any one of those vehicles at any time. Is that?
Thank you, Senator Prentice, for the question. That's correct. You're on the right track. Also, I believe there's something in that called authorized use. So if it was gave it to a spouse and they moved it around, or if the spouse was caregiving for the handicapped person and they go together in the pharmacy, yes, it would all work the same way.
Well, a person can only drive 1 vehicle at a time.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to figure out how would that not, somebody who's really not handicapped, now they're in that car and they're taking a space or a spot away from someone who really needs it.
Not in that example.
Not in that example?
No. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Not in that example.
May I?
Yes.
So Senator Ricciardi's leaning into where I want to go with this. So
you're
5
welcome.
cars, each one has, under this law, because of a walking disability, that it has a medical necessity, gets, a disability plate. And the person with the walking disability could use any one of those. Like you used the example of a farmer who might have multiple vehicles. Okay. They could use that. But in the interim, say, they can only drive 1 car, their daughter, maybe it's the husband, a wife, whoever, they could drive one of these other vehicles, but can they have access to, say, handicap parking, even though they don't have the walking disability? This ties into a bill that we heard recently about handicap parking placards and some of the uses of handicap spaces that are not authorized. So I'm just trying to go down this road to understand, like, if you've got that plate, you could probably park there. Am I correct? Even if you didn't need it?
Thank you, Senator. Okay. We'll
All right, I think
I'll talk more about
I
this.
know, I was trying
Thank
to
you.
go there,
Thank
but
you.
I-
Okay.
Senator Ricciardi helped me.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So, in that scenario, no. If the non-handicapped family member is driving the vehicle alone and decides to park it in a handicap painted space, no, can't do that. No. If the family member is in the duty of caregiving the handicapped person and they're in the car and they're both in the car, yes, they can park in the handicap space and go shop. In terms of anything else beyond that, like the teenage child takes the car, goes for a cruise, and the teenage child's alone and parks in a handicap painted space, no, that you can't do that either. Now, earlier in my testimony, I talked about something completely separate, and that is the placards. So separate and so confusing to everybody, and there is an issue with the placards. I didn't need to use it, but I had a House amendment on standby to change the heading on the description of the cover plate of the law because it included the word placards. I am so looking forward to working on that, but it'll be part of this separate legislative cycle, and I'm going to begin work on that. It has to do with the current environment that I discussed earlier with Senator Fenton, in that, let's say you have both a couple and both husband and wife are handicapped. The way it currently is, between them, you can get one plate and 3 placards. And right now in the state of New Hampshire, we have an issue where to the tune of 130,000 people have walking disabilities, but we have to the tune of anywhere, we don't know, between 300 and 600,000 placards out there. We've got a separate issue to work on. Fortunately, House Bill 259 is just about issuing handicap plates. There is no limit because most people have multiple vehicles. Yes.
So I'm having a little trouble, so help me with this. I'm thinking if you are not having an issue and you're not handicapped, but you're in one of those vehicles that has the plate, and now you've parked in that spot, the law enforcement or anyone who is handicapped and needs the space will just think you are handicapped because the plate says that you are. And so I'm having a little trouble with that. You know, my parents are both gone, unfortunately, but I remember the days they had a placard and one car, but I'm driving them to their doctor's appointment. So I get the wheelchair, I pull in the front of their appointments, I wheel them in, and then I go park in the right spot because I'm not handicapped. So I'm just trying to try to understand that this would not be abused, is where I'm going with this.
Because thank you, Madam Chair. I think law enforcement does a great job. I think that in this bill, House Bill 259, it is just about the plates, and there is an issue to be tackled. And as far as I know from speaking with United Spinal Association, is that right now, both at the federal level and brewing up at the state level, because of the Governor's Commission on Disability, there's a lot of work already, work potential built up back there that I'm excited to work on. Those center around the placards, which the same organizations which endorse my bill, the same organizations are very concerned and worried about the placards. And there could be drastic steps. I can't predict the future. Could be drastic steps about other stuff we could do about them. But the placards is separate from here, the plates. And I don't believe that the citizens of New Hampshire are out to misuse or abuse these accommodations that we give to the disabled community. I see the good in people.
Thank you. Senator McConkey?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Representative Terrell, would you be receptive from my listening and a number of years being a zoning chairman, 15 plus years, and we try and get to yes. Would you be considerate of an amendment that would take that plate number to no more than 2? It would double what you have. I think there's a hang up here, and you can think about it and get back to us. We're not going today, but the hang up, it appears to me, is unlimited number of plates.
Thank you, Vice Chair McConkey. If I may respond honestly and candidly, I would be open to the discussion. We'd talk about starting off, just initially thinking about it with like both a time frame of how long we would have to talk about it, and initially I'm hesitant to put a limit on it. My approach would be to eliminate the limit entirely, and then, as the state, if we find abuses, impose a limit.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak on House Bill 259? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on 259 and we will open up the hearing on House Bill 260. Two sixty. Okay. Can you come forward for House Bill 260, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for inviting me to the big chair.
Welcome to Senate Transportation.
Welcome. All right, House Bill 260 went through the House on consent. What's the point of House Bill, for the record, Representative Steve Pearson, Rockingham District 13, which encompasses the town of Derry. The purpose of House Bill 260 is to kick off, if you will, or certainly not be late to the party, the immense amount of celebration that is forthcoming with the 250th anniversary of our country here. I was born in 1976, so I did not participate. Sorry, everybody. I did not participate in the bicentennial process at that time. But looking back historically, of course, there was just immense amount of celebration that went on in 76 in reference to our 200th anniversary. So what this bill does is it creates a cover plate. It's a commemorative plate. It does not replace your license plate. That would recognize and celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence. This is something that, because it is not replacing your license plate, it falls under the cover plate statute. It doesn't have to have numbers. It doesn't have to be specific to you. They can rattle these off in chunks. They can certainly do it on demand. It's not like they would have to create a stack of plates and then if plates didn't sell, they would be wasted. So that is the crux of this bill, and it would be treated like I said, like every other type of cover plate that's allowed in law on the front of a vehicle right now.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members of the committee? None?
Negative.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
Wow, thank you.
I think you can stay there. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on House Bill 260? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on House Bill 260 and open up the hearing on House Bill 390. Thank you. Oh. Welcome, Representative Pearson.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for booking these back to back. I do appreciate that.
We do try to do that.
So House Bill 390 for the record, Representative Steve Pearson, Rockingham District 13, which is Derry. So House Bill 390 has a little bit of a backstory. I got a call from a gentleman in Salem who went to register an antique fire truck that he's owned for at least 25 years now, and he was told by the town clerk, yeah, we can't do that anymore. which I thought was interesting. And I asked him, well, why is that? There's a new law. That's what he was told. Well, you know, if there's a new law, we're probably pretty much aware of it. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. So that seemed weird to me. Less than 24 hours later, got a call from someone up in the Lakes region, same thing. So what the heck is going on here, right? That's weird. So I called the DMV director and said, what gives here? Why all of a sudden is this happening? And the answer I got was actually kind of a great answer. The director is relatively new. They were going through the statute paragraph by paragraph to ensure their agency was complying with state law. Now, after I lifted my jaw off the floor, because that's fantastic and I wish every state agency would do that, I said, okay, so where are we at here with this? And he said, well, there's a provision in law that does not allow for vehicles to be equipped, it's not used, but equipped with lights, siren, that sort of thing, if they are in private hands. And I said, okay. I said, well, let me tell you a story about what happened. Going back almost 20 years ago, we had an individual in the state of New Hampshire clone a cop car. Wasn't quite a cop car, but kind of looked like one. And he was pulling over women, and he got caught. They charged this individual with a plethora of different crimes, but what they could not charge him with was the vehicle. So this body, as it sometimes does, rushed through something to prevent that from occurring, making it a specific crime, punishable, and whatnot. The problem is when they did it, they used the term emergency vehicle rather than do it specifically for a law enforcement vehicle. Now, what that put into statute was a tremendous unintended consequence, something that, because it was not really related to what happened, it just got ignored. Well, we have a new director, times have changed, they're going through the statute, and what they came to realize was if you own an antique fire engine, you basically barred from the roads of the state of New Hampshire. Now, the idea of that is a little bit strange. So digging into this a little bit further, we had a town clerk tell an individual that they would have to take a razor blade to their vehicle, they'd have to strip it of all this other stuff. And that when you have something that's antique, you're just not going to do that. You're not going to destroy a vehicle. Now, one of the staff up there said to me, well, you just got to make it not a fire truck anymore. I don't care if you paint them purple. People look at it and go, hey, that's a purple fire truck. There's a utilitarian vehicle made for a purpose, and they're pretty well recognized. So in conjunction with the director and speaking with the chairs of both House and Senate Transportation over the summer, it became clear that we just needed to fix this. Because I mentioned to the director, I said, you've now banned them from parades, you've banned them from exhibitions, you've banned them from everything. And let me give you a story of how technicalities in the law cause a problem. The town of Raymond has a 1930 Maxim built in Massachusetts. They have placed either Miss Raymond or Miss New Hampshire on that antique forever. For 50 years in the town parade. But because that was transferred to the Historical Society in the 70s, and it does not fall under the auspices of the fire department, that vehicle can never go in a parade again. And that just seems a little absurd. So the idea here is to straighten this out, keep what's in statute that was intended to be in statute, and allow retired fire apparatus to simply just be retired fire apparatus. It doesn't you can't cruise around lights and siren on, that's still illegal. But what it does do is it allows you to continue to register them and continue for their exhibition function. That's why this is listed under the antique standard. It cannot be used for commerce, which some retired fire apparatus is used for commerce. Tree companies have bought some ladder trucks. We've seen on very rare occasions some pumping apparatus used to literally pump stuff. That's pretty rare. But again, it falls under the antique standard. It's covered by all the rules under the antique standard. But what it does is it says you don't have to take a razor blade to your truck. You don't have to strip off all this stuff. And the DMV director, when we were discussing it, he said, we have a conflict in law because in law right now, the use of lights and siren in the parade is permitted. it's been permitted by law for years. So he says, well, it seems like we kind of have a conflict. So I'm going to let this go for now. We're just going to leave it be. And we'll let the legislature fix this. And that is what this bill proposes. And it went through House Transportation relatively easily. And like I said, went through on the consent calendar. So I'm happy to take any sort of questions in reference to this.
Does anyone have any questions? I do remember us going through this in the summer, so it's good to get this resolved.
Yes.
Okay,
Police car, aren't you too, so I'm good.
okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Does anyone from the public want to speak on House Bill 390? Okay, we will close the hearing on 390, and we will open the hearing on 393. Okay. Moving right along.
Oh, this is me.
Oh,
Prohibiting moorings of boats without a permit.
okay. You want to go there or here?
I just need to introduce it.
Okay,
Can we go up there?
whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Up to you.
Hello?
Only one speaker. Oh, sorry. There's nothing there, but I think he needs it. Welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, thank you. I am, for the record, Mark McConkey, Senate District 3. I'm here to introduce a colleague, friend of mine, Representative Smith, 393 FN, prohibiting mooring of boats without a permit. And I would hope you will give it due consideration. I know there's people behind me. It's an issue on a lake that I live on that's been brought forward. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or pass this along.
I don't think there's any questions, so thank you, Senator. The chair will call Tim Dunleavy. Nice to see you again, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you folks. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, honorable members of the Transportation Committee. My name's Tim Dunleavy, and I work for the State Police Marine Patrol Unit. Marine Patrol comes before you today in support of House Bill 393. This is a bill that was brought to us. We worked on the language with Representative Smith in response to folks who are placing boats on our public waters, particularly those lakes that have that require a mooring permit. Lake Ossipee happens to be one of those. And when you install a mooring on 8 of our lakes, you're required to have an annual permit for that mooring. But when you look at the definition of mooring, folks have equipped their boats with different devices, the most common known as sea legs. I've provided you with a couple of photos of what those look like. And the current definition of mooring in our statutes does not include these types of devices. So we have people who are not eligible for mooring permits, mostly back property owners. They don't have adequate frontage or legal access to the water, that are employing these devices to skirt the mooring permit law, simply because the definition doesn't account for these types of devices. As a result, we are, as I said, in support of this definition change. I will tell you that an amendment in the House made sure that we recognize the marine construction folks that would be employing similar devices on their barges when engaged in a marine construction project with the shorefront property owner's permission, as well as government vessels and any of the like that may be performing some sort of official capacity or duties. I know there is another person who will speak to you today who is a direct neighbor to this issue on Lake Ossipee who will provide you with more information. and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Senator McConkey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Dunleavy, it's hard for me not to say Captain before I say your name, but welcome. Nice to see you. I've been on a decal mission today, and perhaps you might ask your department what a mooring decal costs to produce each year. Unrelated, I have you here. I'm going to ask the question.
So the expense of the decal alone?
Yeah.
I will look into that, sir, and drop you a call or an email.
Thank you, sir.
Certainly.
Oh, sorry.
Get the view to
My-
Thank you, and thank you for taking my question. When is it, you know, when is it defined as mooring versus when you're parked at a sandbar? As in, how long is it considered mooring? Or if the boat is unattended, you know, somewhere like that. Just curious.
Thank you, Senator. Good question. The moorings are for an overnight or long-term storage, if you will, rather than with folks who may have a dock that experiences heavy prevailing winds, and the dock structure alone may not be able to support the weight of the boat they own. It could be later in the summer when water levels start to drop. The boat slip adjacent to the dock isn't deep enough for the size boat they have. And it can be a circumstance where we have condo associations or property owner associations who have significant frontage that may be beach area, but they have applied for and gotten approval for a congregate mooring field, which is more than 4. So they've got a mooring field, and it's something that permanently for the seasonal application allows them to store their boat when they don't have adequate docking space.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you all for your time.
Does anyone from the public want to speak on House Bill 393? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name. Good afternoon.
Jim Elegio. I am a resident of Deer Cove on Ossipee Lake. I am here to say that this is not a theoretical problem. We have been the recipient we have had one of these boats parked on our beach. It's a 50-foot beach and our neighbor's beach for the last 5 years, impacting how we can either enjoy the lake or enjoy a beach. The problem that we have is that not only can a person, since this is unregulated totally, not only can a person park their one boat there, but if they have access to the beach, as in our case, which they have an 8-foot right of way, there is nothing that constrains them from putting 2 of these boats, 3 of these boats, or an entire marina. And we are very afraid of losing our entire beach, not just our single portion of the beach. And the other part is that it's a safety issue. For those of us who have sailboats and who have a 50-foot beach, I have numerous times not had enough room to leave my beach in the sailboat without crashing into a boat that should not be parked on our beach. So that's my comment. If there are any
Thank you.
questions?
Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. So I'll ask again, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on House Bill 393? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on 393, and we will open the hearing on House Bill 513.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senate Transportation Committee members. I am Representative Tom Schamberg of Merrimack 6. I represent the towns of Sutton and Wilmot, and I'm currently serving my 5th term on the House Ways and Means Committee. House Bill 513 was drafted to address a 10-year break in attaining a bridge connection on an established route, Primary Trail 390, and Sutton Ridge Runner Snowmobile Club sought relief, and with the positive assistance of the DOT, They came up with the language that allowed this to be unanimously approved in Resources, Recreation, and Development Committee, went on the consent calendar, and is now before you. You have before you, I think was passed out by Vivian. She was very accommodating in helping this, a map and a picture on the other side of where this trail that we're looking for to get by this blockage. There are 25 landowners that 24 of them approved the trail, and one has, for the last 10 years, not approved anybody coming across. So we've gone to the DOT to see about getting a right-of-way, use of the right-of-way on the Interstate 89. The other letter in front of you is by the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association, who have been so supportive of this approach. Other than that, we know that snowmobilers have an economic effect in this state, especially this year, and we'd like to be able to get that connection to go east to west, north to south. Madam Chair, that's all I have today.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
And the chair will call Adam Schmidt. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. I am Adam Schmidt. I'm here today on behalf of the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association. I provided Representative Schamberg a copy of a letter, which I understand he may have already provided to you, but since I'd already made my copies as well, I thought I'd hand it out. Just wanted in writing that the association is appreciative of his efforts and supportive of the bill. He put in the work with DOT to come up with the language on the House side, and we certainly hope it works. So that was all I had for you today. Just want to make sure you had the letter from the association indicating their support for the bill.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Adam? Seeing none, thank you very much. Would anyone else from the public like to speak on House Bill 513? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on 513, and we will open the hearing on House Bill 663. Okay. Welcome, Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Chair Ricciardi and members of Senate Transportation. For the record, my name is Suzanne Prentice. I am the state senator from District 5, serving 15 communities in the greater Upper Valley, Sullivan County, and one lovely community in Merrimack County. So I am here on behalf of Representative Ebel, who happens to be from that one community in Merrimack County, New London, introducing for her, quite simply, Senate Bill or House Bill 663. This bill allows the Division of Historic Resources to expend Moose Plate funds to administer and fund grants for the preservation of significant publicly owned historic properties. Rep. Ebel is not able to be here this afternoon. She had emailed a number of us, including our colleague Senator McConkey, to ask us to bring her. Ask for her to be pardoned, and for me to step in her place, as she is in Division 1 Finance working on the budget and was unable to get here. Happy to do this for Representative Ebel. She also said that Ben Wilson from the Division of Historic Resources would be here to answer questions specific to this legislation. And with that, I will close my testimony and defer to Ben Wilson, who I hope is here.
Thank you, Senator Prentice.
Okay.
And the chair will recognize Ben Wilson. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chairman and committee members, the testimony I'm about to read is in your packet. There's a few other goodies in there just to explain more about the Division of Historical Resources. For the record, my name is Ben Wilson. I'm the director of the Division of Historical Resources. and the State Historic Preservation Officer, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to House Bill 663. This proposed language addition to the New Hampshire Conservation and Heritage License Plate Program, commonly referred to as the Moose Plate Program, was the result of asking the Attorney General's office if the DHR could legally use a portion of its annual Moose Plate appropriation to recover administrative costs associated with the program. The answer was yes, and I've included the AG's opinion in the handout that you have. We further asked if it would be reasonable or helpful to add the proposed language in HB 663, clarifying and making the language more transparent regarding the fund's uses as they apply to the DHR. And again, the answer was yes. Based on proposed budget cuts for the next biennium, we want to be certain that we'll be able to operate our Moose Plate grant program, which may require the DHR using a portion of its annual Moose Plate appropriation to cover a portion of the program manager's salary and benefits. Currently, that position uses approximately 80% of its time managing the Moose Plate grant program. The DHR annually receives a Moose Plate appropriation of between $250,000 and $300,000, which is then granted out to municipalities for the restoration of publicly owned buildings and other historic resources. Most individual grants range between $10,000 and $20,000. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Senator McConkey?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for appearing. Just help me with I'm learning a lot sitting here today. So your larger group, your department already, New Hampshire Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, is already one of the 5 recipients of money coming from this program. And they're receiving somewhere between $250,000 to $300,000. I love that you had a number for me.
Can I clarify that?
Yes.
So actually, the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources receives just about $1 million in total.
From the Moose program?
From the Moose Plate program. And then that is divided up 5 ways. So the Bureau of Historic Sites receives a portion. The Natural Heritage Bureau within Forests and Lands, they receive a portion. DHR receives a portion. The Arts Council receives a portion, and the State Library receives a portion.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. But the Division of Trails does not receive a portion?
No, they do not. No.
Okay. And so what this will permit the department to do, just explain that to me one more time, if this were to go into play.
So legally, according to the AG's opinion, Moose Plate, as it applies to the DHR, could have been used to support staff salaries and benefits. That was the legal opinion based on the current statute language. When we asked, should we clarify that in the statute and be more transparent about the use of the money, knowing that we may have a need to use it for staff salaries and benefits, the answer was yes, you should clarify it. And so that's why we're here today. We currently have the legal ability to use the money for salaries and benefits, but we're wanting to clarify for transparency for the general public that administer and to fund grants. Grants was never in the original statute. I don't know why, but that's the program that we run.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. Would anyone else from the public like to speak on House Bill 663? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on 663, and we will open the hearing on House Bill 745. Thank you.
Bill Jones, primary sponsor.
Come forward, please. Good afternoon. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Senators. Thank you for having me. My name is Philip Jones, State Rep, Cheshire District 3, Keene Ward 5. I'm also a 28-year city councilor in Keene, and also a member of the board of directors of Pathways for Keene, a nonprofit group that raises money for our trail system throughout the city of Keene and Cheshire County. I'm requesting to name an alternative use bridge, trail bridge in Keene, New Hampshire to be named the Charles Redford Bridge. The bridge is a 340-foot long span crossing over Route 101. The bridge was designed, built, and owned by New Hampshire DOT. The bridge was first proposed by New Hampshire DOT project manager Ron Grand Mason in August of 2015 and was completed in 2018. Since its completion, this bridge has been used by thousands of walkers, runners, bicyclists, horseback riders, and snowmobile operators. This bridge also serves as the main connection for Keene State College students and staff to access the college's athletic complex. It helps the students get across the highway. Otherwise, they have to take a 2-mile trip by car around to their athletic complex. Ironically, Charles Redford's father was at one time the college president. Unfortunately, President Redford had died in an automobile accident, so he never saw this accomplishment come to fruition. Due to the lack of a name, this bridge is simply referred to by the locals as South Bridge, as it is located on the south side of the city. Keene has a very extensive, very popular, and very well-planned alternative use trail system. When it comes to discussion about the planning and developing of the Keene Trail System, Charles Redfern is the Mr. Everything. 30 years ago, Charles Redfern had a vision for a trail system using mostly former trail beds. At that time, the city fathers said, "Show me the money." Charles did just that. He was a founding and charter member of a nonprofit organization which he called Pathways for Keene. The organization's sole purpose was to raise money to pay for the development and maintenance of the entire city's alternative use trail network. Thanks to Pathways for Keene, mostly through the dedicated, tedious work of Charles Redfern, millions of dollars were raised via private donations to fund this well-planned, extensive trail system. Without the vision, the tenacity, and the dedicated efforts of Charles Redfern, there would be no alternative use trail system in Keene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Senator McConkey?
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Madam Chairman. So did this bill come through the House? Did it come through Public Works as a naming bill?
Yes, it did. It was unanimous at Public Works and was on the consent agenda at the House.
Sure. And I imagine it would be. So is there going to be a plaque or anything erected for this bridge?
Yes, the bill says the state won't be paying for it, but
Correct.
I'm assuming either through the city of Keene or Pathways for Keene will raise the money for signage and the
Thank
plaque.
you. Thank you for that, sir. Thank you, Madam.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your
Thank you for that
testimony.
question.
Does anyone from the public want to speak on House Bill 745?
Yes.
Please come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is John Hayes. Chuck Redfern worked tirelessly to develop and improve multi-use trails in and around Keene. While he served as a city council for many years, his amateur career as a bike trail advocate started well before his days as city councilor and continued to this day, even though he is retired. I first met Chuck when we both worked for the Department of Revenue Administration, and we would commute together between Keene and Concord. And Chuck convinced me to serve on the Bicycle Pedestrian Path Advisory Committee, a board that provides advice to the City Council on bike path advisory issues, and Pathways for Keene, the 501c3 that raises money for bike paths projects and the Monadnock Rail Trail Consortium. It was through my work on all these different organizations that I got to see how hard Chuck worked for Keens and the region's bike path system. He is relentless in trying to accomplish the next goal for completing the next project. He is always the #1 fundraiser. He is skilled at the politics of building bike trails. He was always respectful of other stakeholders' points of view and always included them in decision-making. In short, if you name any segment of the rail trail system in Keene, Chuck Redfern had a hand in bringing it to fruition. Keene is very lucky that Chuck Redfern chose to devote his life to bike trail advocacy, because without him, Keene would not have been able to build such a comprehensive and beautiful bike path system. So I am definitely in favor of naming the bridge over 101 the Charles Redfern Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Thank you for your
you.
testimony. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to House Bill 745? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on House Bill 745. And I think if all of you feel comfortable, there's a few here we could go into executive session right now. Is that everybody ready? So I'd like a motion to go into executive session. Okay.
Seconded by her.
Do you need some time? Okay, take your time.
Okay, John. Wait.
You ready? Okay. I would like to have a motion on the bill that we just heard on House Bill 745.
I move ought to pass on House Bill 745.
Okay. So Senator Fenton moved ought to pass. Senator Ward seconded the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Now, Senator Fenton, since you're from Keene, would you like to speak to this or would you like it on consent?
We can put it on consent, but I'll take it out.
Okay. So all those in favor of putting House Bill 745 on consent, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed? And Senator Fenton will be taking this bill out.
Good job, gentlemen.
Okay. So, there's a few here I think we can do. Does anybody have any thoughts or want to talk about anything?
I think 393,
Okay.
prohibiting mooring of boats without a permit.
Yeah, that's easy one.
Yep.
393.
Prohibiting mooring of boats without a permit.
I'll move on to pass.
I'll second that.
Okay, Senator McConkey moved ought to pass. Senator Prentice seconded. All those in favors of ought to pass on House Bill 393, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed.
Move consent.
Senator McConkey moved consent. Senator Fenton seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. And Senator McConkey, would you like to take that out? Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yep, certainly.
Madam President, I move Senate Bill 513, or House Bill 513 ought to pass.
Second.
Okay. Motion of ought to pass from Senator Fenton, seconded by Senator McConkey. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Move consent. So I moved consent. Senator Fenton seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, none opposed.
I would move not to pass on House Bill 140, the Blue Envelope Program.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Takes out 514, 513.
I will.
I'm sorry, the motion on 140 is,
Ought to pass.
okay.
And so Senator Fenton made the motion ought to pass on 140. I seconded the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Move consent.
Second.
All those in favor of consent, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. Who would like to take that out?
I'll take it out.
All right, Senator Ward will be taking out 140.
Think Fire
Um,
trucks we could do.
yeah,
Yeah, Madam President, I move, or Madam Chair, maybe one day. House Bill 390 ought to pass.
I'll second that.
okay, we'll go a little slower here. Let's get caught up. This was the one, while you're catching up, relative to adding retired fire apparatus fire trucks to antique vehicle exemptions, because it was a problem. So this is basically a technical fix. All right,
This
so.
is truly a cleanup where some of them.
Yes, all in favor on House Bill 390, please say yes.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all in favor, none opposed.
Move second.
Okay, Senator Ward moved consent, Senator Fenton seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. I'll take that one out.
I'm buying myself a fire truck.
Fire apparatus.
Are we ready for 260? Or you need more time on that? That's the creating the license, commemorative license plate.
I think we have a discussion. I think Senator McConkey raised some interesting points
Okay.
about the number of
All right.
vehicles with these plates.
All right, let's wait on that one. We're gonna also wait on 105.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait on that.
And wait on 259.
259, wait.
That's 259. I don't know. I mean, if there's an appetite for 663,
Well, let's talk about it since we're in executive session. I have some, I see the intent of the bill, but I do have some reservations. I liked the idea of amending it to 2 plates, but another thought that.
no, 663 was
Oh, 6, I thought you said
Historic
250.
resources.
historic resources.
Oh, okay, I thought you were, said
Van
250.
Wilson. No.
Oh, yeah, that one? Oh, I'm,
Okay. So
yeah.
you good.
All right, so what, did someone bring a motion now?
I would move on to pass
All right.
House Bill 663.
All
I
right,
think it's
and
a housekeeping bill.
Senator Prentice seconds it, okay.
Which one are you on now?
663, the one with
Yeah, I thought you said
updating the statute about
that was the one
transparency
before
with
the
where the funds are going.
So that was the one we just heard. It was allowing the divisions of historic resources to expend Moose Plate funds to administer and fund grants. And basically what he was saying is that he just wanted a cleanup bill for more transparency to the public. So right now we have an ought to pass by Senator Fenton and a
I'm
second.
not looking at your test answers to your test question.
And a second by Senator Prentice.
That's fine.
Ready for the vote.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed?
Move consent.
Second? All those in favor of consent?
Aye.
Okay, Senator Ward, do you want to take that out?
Sure.
Okay. Do any that we are not ready to do today, do we want to have any discussion on it or wait for some more information to come forward?
105 looks good, but I think that we need to take a look at what else is going to be the market. Now here, the Moose Plate and the Loon Plate. So are the people from the Moose Plate going to switch over to a Loon Plate? Or
So
can't we just put a moose with a little lake here and here's the loon?
Well, I was trying to go with some out of the box thinking because I heard what Fish and Game said and you know, but I also know how serious the cyanobacteria problem is. And the state is not able with this budget to really come forward and help, and the people deserve some of the help. I don't know, very out of the box, but could it be something where you have to have both plates, like a combination, something that they all benefit from, or add them to the 5 and make it a 6 criteria? Just thinking out loud.
I think Senator McConkey made a good point that, you know, why can't we do a decal? I mean, it gets us to the same spot. My just fear is, it's the moose, then it's the loon, then it's, the woodchuck, then it's something else. I think, like you said, Madam Chair, it's such an altruistic endeavor, the Cyanobacteria Fund, and we need it for our lakes, but I don't know how picky we can be about the plate.
Several years ago, there was a bevy of bills that came in that all wanted to have something because a alumni school or some organization, and we had just one after the other, and finally we decided the way to go is to have a decal. Because it was expensive to print a new plate, and they could buy they could give out the decal for a gift of something, and the Alumni Association and other organizations gave that out to their supporters. So that's one way of looking at the decals.
If I may, I have been a sponsor of 2 decal bills that have both passed. And the second one, which had to do with injury prevention, I mean, we really tried to make the case just like was made here, which is different. Obviously from cyanobacteria, I think that the situation that we're facing, that Representative Rung brought forward is, it's a huge concern to our communities and natural resources. But at the same time, the thing I learned with the injury prevention plate is the upfront investment is much more than the upfront investment on the decal. And if you don't make the sales, like what kind of it's hard to prove. This is what I was never able to quantify, is if you can't prove what the appetite is to purchase these plates, then I mean, what's it going to take you to get there before you're actually bringing any money into your fund? Where if you do a decal plate, a not-for-profit picks this up and runs it, one or more, sets it up, and then they are the movers and the shakers behind selling these, bringing the funds in to their effort is basically what we're saying. This effort aligns with others, that are like it. And, and the cost is less to the state to actually get these produced. So that was the difference that I learned is actually in this committee last year when I asked you all about, bless you, the injury prevention plate. Boom, that's where I ended up.
And it would not negatively impact the Fish and Game, which is,
There's the protection of anytime you have a funding source, it's already covering multiple streams. If you're going to add anyone onto that, you have to be like, yeah, it does. It endangers, and again, worthy, but where
I would love
anytime
for
you
them-
expand, you have to be thinking about what the underlying, what we're taking away from where we already are. Is this the best way to approach it? And I hail the efforts of Representative Rung and they're important to my district. I think we all have lakes that are, and ponds that are facing these problems, but.
I would love for them to have, go ahead.
So I have sat in, I'm in the Lakes region, live on Ospey Lake, and I'm invited to all these organizations, especially in the summertime, they'll ask to come speak. So the Lakes Association will be there, and I could see, because I know who my neighbors are, I know who my summer neighbors are, I know who's there year round, and they enthusiastically, living in Massachusetts, will say, I'm happy to do that. Well, they're never going to buy a plate. They're just never going to buy a plate. But I think the decal is the right way to go. And for that gentleman that wouldn't pay for a decal, let him buy 2. Make a donation.
I'd love for them to have the plate just from the standpoint how much they want it, but we're not being practical when it's going to take the much needed funds away from Fish and Game, and also the money, the cost. I don't think they'll be 100% happy, but it's a good compromise.
It is the compromise.
I have a way to fund their entire program that I'll introduce next year.
Okay.
All right.
I look forward to
The
it.
microphone was off though, so they didn't hear that portion.
I think maybe it trailed over here.
So
We'll hold it.
what would we like to do today, or just to have this discussion and revisit it next week?
I'd like to revisit it.
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
amend it.
And
revisit
maybe
it.
have an opportunity to speak to the sponsor.
sponsor.
As remember, I think it was Senator Waters came to me and said, we value what you want to do with this, but
We have
this
to
is
do
the
detail.
this is, and explained it all to me in a way I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. So,
All right. So let's wait on that, but it was good to have a discussion while the public can hear what we're saying. And I'd like to wait on 259.
Sure.
We just got an email from Representative Newell about 140 explaining why she couldn't be here today. So,
She was sick this weekend.
Yeah.
Well, did you tell her?
Good news.
I haven't responded
Oh,
yet. I
okay.
just opened it and read it.
Okay.
I will leave it to her local senator to transmit the information.
Is there anything else that any of you would like to discuss while we're together?
And we didn't hear, if I could mention, we didn't hear 454 because Richard Walsh wasn't here.
No, sorry, I was talking about something else.
No, we didn't hear that because we had 9 hearings and
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the toll list. I'm sorry.
yeah,
I apologize.
okay, that's okay. But we had 9 and that one's going to be a little bit controversial, so I didn't want to do that when we already had 9.
Do we have more in the pipeline coming through?
Well, Madam Chair, we do have one bill we didn't discuss, which is 260, or did you say you wanted to wait on that?
Oh,
Which
no,
is the American Independence Bill.
Oh, I think we could pass that.
Well, I had some questions that I don't understand. Is this only being allowed for the 4th of July of the 250th anniversary of America, or is this a plate that you can now put on the front of your car for forever?
Sounded like he said you could put it on the front of your car forever.
Now, would that violate the rule that we have where we already have plates are required on the front of your vehicle?
It's a cover though.
But then we cannot see what the plate is underneath. Law enforcement can't see what the front plate is underneath.
Oh, I thought it meant it was like an outline.
No, I
with
think
the
it's
plate
it's
in-
the
oh.
cover plate like our.
I'm not sure. The thing is,
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I think it's the going over.
Yeah, I think it's a full cover plate.
Oh. We have to wait on this and get more clarification.
I think when Tamworth, when we celebrated their 200th anniversary, there's a time limit that cover plate can be on. And I think you're allowed to have it for that calendar year or something. I thought there was a time, so.
We need to look
so
back at the
that's- That's
bill.
a very good question.
Yeah, that was my fear. I mean, I'd probably buy one, but I don't want it to violate it. I do know. I'm the one that did know what a cover plate was. You know.
Yeah, I said,
That's the one that goes over the covers.
Yes, but the concern is, state law says we have to have a visible front plate with our actual plate number. So if we just have something that says "God bless America," law enforcement doesn't know what that front plate is because it's covering the front plate.
so we have to,
Legislative plates.
we have to see what the time frame is, if it's a certain window of the
Our
calendar.
legislative plates are cover plates, but they identify who we are.
Right, and we keep our plates with us anyway. My regular plates are in my
We don't
car,
get pulled over.
my personal plate.
You can't use them on those mobile parking machines. If you try to plug in, you're like,
Digiplate?
yeah, doesn't go.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I have to use the one under it in order to do it. Learn that.
Move to leave executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All those in favor to adjourn in totality?
Aye.
Today, not the
Today.
totality of the session. Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
3 bills left, right?